All right, I'm back here. It's been a couple months. I had to go do work in another state, and we're here now. I got the car back together. I took it apart, and then I had to leave for work. It was kind of hard to put it back together once I got back, but I made it happen. Just went through the brakes, master cylinder. Everything went really smooth, fairly straightforward. Here's the fronts. Everything's new. Shoes and cylinders and everything. Rears. And new brake line right there. I reinstalled the adjusters that I found in the trunk properly. New lines on the fronts there too. I got the drums turned just before I left. It should be ready to go test drive. I'm gonna start it right now, and it did run better after I did the carb than before. It seems like it's idling now. And when I moved it into the shop, it would not idle. And the only thing is this choke, something to do with the choke. This lever, I just don't understand. It goes like over center and then it won't come back, and I couldn't find any pictures of how this, whatever this thing is supposed to do, I don't know. So if anybody knows, let me know. All right, brakes are all done and bled. We got it back on the floor here. Professional battery cables installed here, and the battery hold down bracket should stay. No air filter right now, no belts at all, so no power steering, no alternator. But I just want to see if the brakes work and go in and out of the shop here under its own power. We have some brake pedal now. The auto pedal sticks, so we'll see. Starts pretty nice. So whenever I step on the throttle, it stays up, and then I gotta pull it back to go back down. See if the brakes are doing anything here. Drive. Brakes aren't doing much. They're doing something. That takes a lot of power to stop the car, so the brakes need some help for sure. Yeah, I don't want to get on the driveway with those brakes. That's a full force there to stop the car, just doing 2 miles an hour. So hopefully I can make it back down the hill here. That's full. I can't go any slower than that, so let's hopefully make it in there. Okay, so investigation into the no brakes issue. I think everything's good at the wheels. It feels like it's just not getting power boosted. While I was looking around, I noticed that it was, when we were stepping on the pedal, it was leaking right there between this fitting and the master cylinder. I took this fitting out of the old master cylinder, put it in here. And then the other thing is this brake line, which, so here's the original one. The side that goes into the master, like this edge is like all cracked, and like it's not going to push very hard on the seal there to make it seal. So I think that was another problem. So now it seems like it's not leaking. Then rebled everything, so now I'm going to try to move it again and see if it works.
It'll work.
Also checked that check valve. That seems like it's working as far as I can tell. All right, start for this morning. See, now once the car is running, the pedal easily goes to the floor. So maybe the booster is working. have a little bit more brake than before. I think that probably means the booster is working. If the pedal's going to the floor now, really easy, then maybe I just need to adjust the brakes tighter. But I phoned a friend and he said, check the e-brake. So I pushed the e-brake and it was going all the way to the floor. So he said, I probably don't have the shoes adjusted tight enough. So I did the rears and now that e-brake is a lot stronger. So now we're just gonna adjust the fronts and then try again. So the adjusters are just right there. Turn it a couple times and then spin the wheel and it should be. This one's pretty tight, I feel like. I put these shoes on backwards on the rear, so I flipped those around and he said that it's probably that the shoes just need to be broken, so that I should just drive it a little bit. But I flipped those shoes around, so I'm gonna see if it changes anything. I mean, there's definitely a bit more brake now than there used to be. Oh, look at that, I could stop it. Hey, we could actually stop the car. I mean, it takes a lot of effort, but I could stop it. All right, that's a lot better. Okay, so since the brakes are done for now, I'm gonna work on the cooling system today. Got water, really gray water out of the radiator, and then more clear water came out of the engine. It looks like it's kind of separating there, so it's a little weird. I pulled off this top hose, and the thermostat housing is rusted. Probably should buy one. I'll have to see. Yeah, I probably should just buy one. Radiator's out. You can see a little leak. I mean, I think that's leaks. And then the back, you can see a little color there, and then a lot here. So I'm just assuming it's not 100% sealing. This is the mount for it, where the braze is broken on both sides. Right there. It should be a little tack right there, which I think that whole thing, like the radiator drops in and then they just tack it, but that's broken too. And then in here, it's just a little dirty. All right, we're just going deeper and deeper here. Power steering pump out, took the lines out. I have the new high pressure line. I need to figure out a new low pressure line. The lines are in really bad shape. The AC bracket actually bolts to the top of the water pump. So I was looking at how to take the AC bracket off because I didn't really want to remove the AC just yet because I want to talk to my AC guy first, but it's just becoming more and more impossible to work on. So I decided to actually remove it. So disconnected lines here, and it was holding pressure or vacuum or something, like maybe like half a PSI, but it was a closed system.
One more hose is going to come out. It's a water hose. I took that in. There you go. Okay.
No thermos. Oh. Yummy. Heater lines out, water pump, motor mounts looking kind of toasted. I do have some and they look like they're going to be easy to get to right now. I don't know. I feel like I'm going to do all this and still have to do this again to pull the engine at some point, probably for like a rear main or something like that. But I guess that's just the way it goes. I feel like it is going to be a bit of a leaker, judging by my floor already. Anyways, we're here now. We'll clean it out. I think I want to roll a car out and just like run a bunch of water through and just see how much crap we can get out of there and just go from there. Okay, so it's been a couple days. I had all this off and then realized, like, really, there's only a couple more things to do here to have the engine out. And the transmission is leaking, and I know the engine is leaking from a couple places, and I just want to clean and put new gaskets everywhere, so I figured, why not? Let's just pull the engine out. This is fairly typical for me, and it turns short projects into very long projects, and here I am again. But we're gonna get it out of here. I think the last thing I'm waiting on is the exhaust is hooking up on the frame rail. I need to cut it off, but I don't have a Sawzall right now. I'm trying to get one, but everything else is out. Drive shaft's on the floor, and other than that, it should be good to go. All right, well that made a lot of mess, but it's definitely cleaner. You can see the original factory red on the block, and then whoever did it after did orange. I guess the red is original, and the red gets mistaken for orange on these. Still lots of grime there. One of the freeze plugs I thought looked like it was leaking. I don't remember, I'll have to look closer. A whole bunch of junk came out of the cooling system. It's like coagulated coolant or something. I'll have to dig those freeze plugs out and make sure they're good. In the car, I think it was just the power steering pump low pressure line that was leaking. It's a lot cleaner now in there. And then like there's just some big stuff there that I could scrape up. But that is a lot better, both the car and the motor. So next step on here is just gonna be tearing down and resealing everything. And I bought a timing chain and stuff, so I can get her as fresh as possible without rebuilding. More green. What is that junk? Look at that valve in there. Don't know what's the purpose of this, but I'll try to remove it. Whoa, look at that. Sludge. Look at that. Oh, nice and sludgy. Lots of extra shit in there. You just pull the chunks out. I think those are falling off the valve cover here. So I don't know, what does that mean? Lack of oil changes? Oh, that side's worse. Look at this chunk. Something to scrape in a vacuum and maybe just get as much out as I can. I don't really know. Well, I wasn't gonna remove the intake manifold, but oh, we're here, so let's just do it. This is like the choke lever. So I guess the spring heats up and then it makes the choke turn off. Oh, Jesus, this thing's heavy. Oh, good God. A little cleaner than I thought it'd be in there. If I knew what I was looking at, I could tell you if the cam looked good or not. But I don't, so I won't. Nice. A bit dirty, like the rest of it. That seems loose. I feel like that's a bit too loose. All right, so I took this drain plug out for the coolant and it was full of junk, and I actually had to like scrape it all out. It was decently plugged. And then I was also looking at this freeze plug, the one I thought was leaking, and it has like a decent little gouge in it. So it may have actually been leaking, a couple little gouges. So I'm just gonna pop that out so I can replace it. If it looks bad in there, I'm gonna pop the other ones out and replace them too so that I can clean inside there. Well, that just went right through. Screwdriver's going through the freeze plug, so I need to find a different method here. This is the other side. You can see it's full of junk too. So my neighbor came over and we talked about this a little bit. We looked at some stuff. Part of it is the cams. You can see the pitting on the lobes there. It's likely that the lifters look the same. So he said it's probably a good idea to put a cam and lifters in it, and I don't want to spend that much money on this engine. He also recommended valve stem seals. He said that'll be like a decent benefit for the amount of work and for how far we are already. So I still need to research cam and lifters. I don't know how easy they're going to be to find for this 318 poly, but I'm going to look and see, and I am going to pull the heads and do the valve sim seals and probably just like lap the valves and just like check everything out. This is exactly what I didn't want to do when I pulled the engine, but I always get in this like, oh, I'm almost there, I'm just going to do this. And so here we are pulling the heads, exactly what I said I wasn't going to do. All right, let's not dump any fluids on myself here. Oh, good Lord. It's kind of heavy. I don't know what I expected here. Don't fall off, please. All right, I guess we're getting the push rods with it. Lots of buildup in the coolant passages here, which seems to be a theme. So if we hadn't done this and cleaned everything out, like we most likely would have had problems with overheating. Like, what is that? All right, so I was using a screwdriver because that's what I saw on YouTube, just smack the screwdriver, but I was making holes in the freeze plug instead of actually turning it. So he showed me just get a flat tip punch and then put it on the actual shoulder of the freeze plug, not down in the freeze plug. And just twist it out. Nice gunk on there. And this one on the front of the motor is actually fairly clean, but like back here, there's a lot of junk in there. I have to dig all that out. Look at all that mess in there. Disgusting. Just full. Yeah, that's like, no wonder we were getting so much black junk out of it when we were pressure washing. So I could see it not cooling very well if we had left all that in. And then here's the first one we pulled out, the holes in it. I mean, like that hole, that's from a screwdriver, me trying to take it out, but those center holes, it's actually rusted through. And I couldn't tell that it was rusted through because behind it was a super thick, dry buildup of this black stuff. So when I was putting my pick in it, it felt solid, but it was just a buildup behind it. The freeze plug was, I was actually going through the freeze plug when I was digging on it, and I couldn't tell that there was a hole in the freeze plug because of all the buildup. That'd be a lot harder to do with this in the car for sure. Got all the valves out of the head, borrowed a spring compressor from the neighbor. I forgot to record that. Couldn't decide what to do with the cam because didn't seem like there were that many options, but I ended up finding a place in SoCal that will do a regrind on the cam for a reasonable price. I think it said $145, and then I have to just buy the set of lifters. Now I'm gonna pull the cam out and try to get that shipped out to him tomorrow. While everything's getting worked on, cleaned and stuff, I'll be cleaning up the block and all of the thousands of spare parts that I have left here that still need to be cleaned. Never done this before. Zip ties. So I can hold it on the back side. Now I just need 3 hands. And now we don't need it anymore. There we go. Okay, so with the cam out now, the lifters need to come out. On the bottom side, there's a bit of a buildup there, and same on the top edge. So they're not like freely sliding out. So I'm just pushing them up and then wire brushing that top buildup off. Then once it's all clean, take a rag, wipe it off. Now there's no gunk on this top edge, and it should push through backwards. And then I can do my best to not drop it here. Come up through the valley. There you go. All right, so here's a before and after. So this head just came out of the parts cleaner. That head is after 6 or 8 hours of wire brush and just final cleaning on there. If we look at the bottom, see nice clean valve seats in there. Combustion chamber is all clean, everything's clean, and there's very little orange paint left on it. The only problems I was having is most of the coolant passages in here were just full of junk. You know, I tried very hard to get everything out that I can, but it's just, there's just so much in there. So I think we're just going to end up having to flush the engine out before we finish, and just hope for the best there. I did have one question though. There's inside the cooling chambers, see that little rod? They're all over inside the head, and I can't tell what they are, but they're a solid rod, and a couple of them rusted through and kind of fell out. There's a couple left in there. They're not tubes, but I just can't tell what they're for. If you guys know what those are for, let me know. But they're inside the cooling passages in the head. And so now I've got another 6 hours to put into this one. And this is basically everything I'm using. Just an angle grinder with a wire wheel, the steel pipe cleaners from Harbor Freight, screwdrivers, picks, pneumatic wire wheel, air gun, and Dremel with wire brushes. Just bought like a big pack of wire brushes on Amazon, and just time. Pretty clean. And nice clean upper valve seats and retainers there. So that was really easy. All I did was wipe them off with a rag before I put them in for 30 minutes in the Pine Sol hot, and then wipe them off, and they're good to go. This is pretty much all clean. Head surfaces are clean, about as clean as I'm gonna get it. Ready for paint. I'm gonna have to wash all the crank and the pickup tube and everything. And then the heads over here, they're pretty clean. Ready for valve lapping. Valves are all clean, valve springs. Everything else is lined up over here, ready to get clean. Timing cover's already clean, but intake manifold's gonna be a bitch. Valve covers and manifolds and oil pan is probably gonna be annoying. Radiator came back freshly recored by an old man in Auburn, $700 recore. It got new end tanks. Those are new old stock end tanks. This top is the original top, and then all the bracketry got rebrazed on because it had all fallen off, but basically brand new radiator. Coming together slowly. All right, so I got all the valves lapped in. The intake valves came out really nice. You can see the valve seats in here. Some of the exhaust valves are a little bit pitted. They're better than they were. You can see a little, doesn't get a full seat across there. That's all right. Like there, that one's a little bit pitted, but it's gonna seal better than it did for sure. And it ran fine before we took it apart, so should be good. All right, this is pretty quick. Basically, just grab the valve, spray it off so it's clean. A little bit of assembly lube. Make sure we have the right cylinder with the right valve. These older style valve stem seals just kind of grip onto the valve shaft, and then they go up and down with the valve, and then they cover the seam between the valve and the head, and they just stop oil from splashing in there. They're not actually like a super solid seal, but that's what they used to use. So then the valve stem seal kind of holds the valve in so that it doesn't fall out here. A little bit of assembly lube on the valve spring. Probably don't need it, but I'm gonna put it on there anyways. And just pop that onto the valve. The top seat here, throw that on. Then valve spring compressor. This head, with it being poly, the valves are kind of angled a little bit, and some of them it's pretty difficult. This end one is pretty easy, but can make them work. And then the valve keepers just plop right into the top here. Make sure they're in there good. And then we can just release the spring compressor. And then double check to make sure those are in there nicely, and you can even hit it with a hammer. Make sure they don't pop out. All right, all the valves are in, ready to go back on the block. And next step, prep the block, which is do the camshaft and cam bearing installs. So I got this cam bearing remove and install tool off of Amazon, $70. The only thing I'm actually worried about here is the number 1 bearing. You use the cone to keep the bearing straight, to keep the tool, drive the bearing straight, but in the number 1 bearing, I don't think I can do that. I'm pretty sure you're supposed to run that bearing in from the other side, but since I still have the crank in, there's no way for me to actually get the tool inside the block. But I did see someone put it in from the front, so we're most likely just gonna have to eyeball it and hope that it ends up straight enough on the front bearing. But I think everything else will be fairly simple. I'm just gonna pound out the plug there and then pound out the bearing once the plug is out. The bearing actually doesn't look bad, but I think we're just gonna replace them all. All right, all of them are out now. Number 5 looked pretty good. 2, 3, and 4 were all bad, like you can see. Number 1 was pretty good, but I damaged it taking it out. May have been able to survive, but we're doing the others anyways, so. The only problem I had was since the crank is in, it's pretty hard to get them all out of here. Number 4 here knocked it that way, and then it can't come out of this hole, so I had to dangle it and figure out how to get it, but it did come out between the crank and rods, and same with number 1. It was kind of hard. But these holes are big enough where you can just pull the bearing out the top. Should not be a problem though, putting them in, because you put them all in from this direction. All right, I got number 5 here prepped. Oil holes on the bottom. Then I made a mark on the other side where the top of the bearing would be. Because I have the crank in, I can't look from the bottom up to see where the oil hole is. And I can't look in this direction because you just can't see. And I can't see the bottom, so hopefully I'll be able to see my paint pen sticking out on the top on this side when I put it in there, but I might need a mirror or something. Probably be a lot easier with 2 people here. I would say the bearing is like a hair too far in there. Oh, that bearing is ruined. All right, well, I guess we're gonna run it all the way through. There's $40. So yeah, there's that. So I'm guessing the tool slipped inside it when I was installing it, which sucks because, you know, you gotta buy a whole set. You can't just buy the one, so they're like 40, 50 bucks for a set. I had this thing as tight as I could get it, hand tight, because I didn't want to go crazy with it on the wrench. Apparently that was not tight enough, so we'll be going hard with the wrench next time. All right, ready for the second attempt here. New bearing. Hopefully this goes good. Freaking just keep pushing it too far. It's too easy to push it that far. I mean, it's probably fine, but let's see. Yeah, I mean, I did push it way too far here, so I'm gonna have to get the engine off the engine stand, I think, and push it back the other way, which kind of sucks. I know, V. I know, V. All right, so all the cam bearings are in now. I had to concentrate, so I wasn't really filming, but I ended up basically doing all of them twice. After that rear one, I had to order a new set. Like on number 4 here, I pushed it a little bit too far past the oil hole, so I had to push it out and then use the new one in there. Same thing happened here, same thing happened there. I figured out by the time I got down here, it's because the oil holes are not actually centered either this way or left to right in the actual cam bearing seat, whatever you call that thing. By the time I got there, I figured out the holes are all off center, so I have to line up the bearing with the hole that is not centered, but what I was doing was just centering the hole. Number 1 bearing is the only one I didn't have to do twice. Here's all the cam bearings. This is all the ruined ones I went through, and still have a number 1 there that's still good, but yep, it did take me 2 sets to be able to do it properly. All right, so the oil pan here is the first thing I'm gonna try to paint. I'm using the Duplicolor engine, the actual Chrysler red, I guess, that it's supposed to have. So I'm just gonna brake clean, spray it down, and then use the torch to burn off all the oils that are in it. I don't know if you can be able to see this very well out here, but you can see the torch just burns off the oils. You can see it a lot better in the shade. What's left of the brake clean. That is looking pretty nice. As long as no bugs land in it, we'll be good. They got a nice line on it, huh?
Didn't bleed over at all. Little pieces. Gasket will cover that.
All right, we're doing freeze plugs now. I have brass freeze plugs, Permatex forma gasket, and that's just gonna seal any imperfections between the freeze plug and the block there. So I'm just going around the edge of the freeze plug here with the Permatex, and then I'll go around the hole in here. Probably don't need both, but might as well. Just set the freeze plug in here. A Harbor Freight seal driver, and the edge of this seal driver ends up right in the fillet lip in the block here, so it sets the depth of the freeze plug fairly well. Which you can do it without this. You can do it with just a socket, but this is working pretty well here. And then once it sits all the way down in there, the sound changes. And I can wipe off the excess sealant here. And unfortunately, it is taking my paint off. I did it like this so that I wanted that contrast between the gold and the red, but it did take all the paint off. So maybe I'll go back again with a paintbrush and fill it in where it's taken the red off. I cleaned out the lifter bores here, cleaned out the cam bearings, so they're all nice and shiny, ready for the cam. I got cam back here from Oregon Cam Grinding in Washington. Look at this receipt though. Imagine the printer this thing came out of. It's got the perforated edges and everything. But $284, they reground the cam, and then they also reground all my lifters. And they sent me a set of cam bearings, which I destroyed installing, and had to buy another set anyways. So I will just clean this up real quick, put some lube on it, and slap her in there. All right, bearings there in the blocker all lubed up. Cam's ready to go. I've only ever done overhead cam motors, so this is my first time doing a cam like this, so see how it goes. Feels okay, I think. I'm not quite sure how loose it should feel, but there's no play, it spins. I don't feel any rough spots, so gonna go with that, I think. I think that's called the cam thrust plate is on. That prevents the cam from sliding this direction. I still need to put the new plug back in here so that it doesn't slide this direction, but I think we can put the timing set on right now. And I have the old timing set here, and I took this off in one piece and I never separated the gears from the chain, so they're still lined up in time how they were. So I just rotated it, and I put the crank what do you call that thing, dang it, key at the bottom, and then the cam key at the top, woodruff key, there you go. But they're still in time. And then I marked tooth up here and then counted 17 links down to the bottom, and then set it up exactly the same over here. So this timing set is also in time. So all I have to do is line up the cam and crank, slide this on, and we should be good to go there. I was looking at the head gaskets. I don't know what is up with these tiny holes. This is water passage right there. Look how big that hole is. And then we got to cover it up with this tiny little hole. So that's how water gets to the head. Doesn't make any sense. And on the head side, there's the holes. The holes in the head are much larger also. Otherwise, seems like all the appropriate holes are there. There's a few extras, like that hole doesn't exist in the head or on the block. You can see right there. Right there. Why are those there? I don't know. Maybe these are wrong. So I need head bolts. So this is what the head bolts look like now, just all greasy and stuff. I've cleaned up these two already, but I don't like it when you put the heads on the block and then you paint and then all the head bolts are red with the block. I like it when there's a little contrast there. So I'm just gonna clean these up with a wire brush and then a wire wheel to remove all the paint. Very clean wire brush to get the big stuff off. Wire wheel to finish the job here. I just want bare metal. And then I'm using this blackening solution to turn the bolt heads black. I'm not really sure. I think it's an acid that basically it's like a thin layer of corrosion that it puts on, but it turns out straight black on steel. Kind of like the shaft is here already black. We're gonna make the head match it. I'm not too worried about the shaft because that's not gonna get corroded being down in the block. So I just want the heads to be pretty. Just to clean it, to dry it. So you just put it in there for, I don't know, 30 seconds or a minute, and just, it'll slowly turn it black here. Try not to get any bubbles on the bottom there. After that's done, just rinse it off with water. And it looks pretty gray there, but we're gonna seal it here. So after wiping that excess black off, I just take a little bit of wheel bearing grease and seal it. Just trying to grease it here and then just wipe that off. Ideally, I do like that zinc coating. Is that what it is? Zinc? I can't remember. That turns them gold, but you know, this is kind of a low budget thing. So I was looking for something else that would be similar but easier and cheaper. And I found this stuff and it looked pretty cool. So I figured we'd try it. I don't know if it's gonna last a while. Hopefully the bolts don't rust after a couple of years, but we'll see what happens. That's what it looks like all sealed. So this is straight wire wheel. This is after it's wiped off, after it's been through the blackening solution, and then that's sealed. I like the color though. It should have a nice contrast on the head. It's kind of like just a natural steel color, and hopefully it won't rust. So. All right, heads are on there looking nice, all torqued to 85 foot-pounds as it says in the manual. And the sad thing here is my paint around the bolts is flaking, but it is what it is. It'll be fine. All right, so here's all our lifters. I just got them de-greased from shipping, and basically just gonna put a little assembly lube on each one and then rub them down and stick them in there. All right, so next thing we have to do is install push rods. In order to do that, bring the piston to the bottom of the stroke, get off the cam lobes so that the lifters are fully in their downward position. And we need to drop the push rod down that hole. The rocker is in the way, so if you slide the rocker to the side, push rod will go all the way in, but now the valve spring is stopping the rocker from seating onto the push rod. So we have to lift and compress the valve spring here so that we can get that in there. So factory has this special service tool that you can bend the valve spring with. I just made my own here. Just folded a lip over on this end and then just welded some rod there so that when it sits down on the rocker, it just is a pry bar. I don't know if this is how you're supposed to do it, where I'm sliding the rocker to the side, but it's working for sure, so I'm gonna keep doing it. It's definitely touching all the way across there. Yeah, it's looking all right. All right, let's add bolts. Yep, starting at 120 inch-pounds, just going from the centers out in both directions. Factory service manual says to go to 40 foot-pounds on these. So I'm gonna do 10 foot-pounds, 20, 30, 40. All right, now I'm going up to 40 foot-pounds here. Didn't really need to tape that much here. Gross, it's starting to dry. Doesn't want to move. What a mess. Disgusting. Maybe I shouldn't be touching it. I'm gonna touch it anyways. Brake clean on a rag. Hopefully I don't regret this. Just want to clean it so it looks a little better. It's the back side, so we shouldn't really see it. Only you and me will see it. All right, it's all on there and torqued down and cleaned up as much as I can clean it. As far as like how it looks in the edges, you know, it could be better. I'm like 80% happy with it, 85%, like some of the sealant's coming out here. I cleaned it up as best I could, but if it seals and doesn't leak, I'll be 98% happy. The bolt heads look good with the gold washers. Moving on, something else. There's water on the back of these. There's oil on the back of these, and I don't think they would be like any direct oil flow where they would leak oil, but I'm still gonna put some sealant on them just in case, because last thing I want on this nice freshly painted engine is a leak, so. So on the timing indicator here, the casting on this water pump is not quite like factory. Like this all should have been shaved off here. And you can see somebody's forced it on before. I'm assuming this thing is supposed to be flat, but just to take care of that, I'm just gonna put one washer behind and space it off. All right, I think these valve cover gaskets, I think I read they're supposed to go on dry, which seems odd to me. If you think I should do something else, let me know. I'll be surprised if they seal, because these valve covers only have 2 bolt holes, one at that end, one at that end, so there's nothing really pinching the center of the valve cover down to the head. I mean, if they seal, I'll be happy, but I kind of anticipate them not. These have some pretty cool holes here, and these little pieces that stick out of the valve cover where the holes, and then it holds itself onto the valve cover so that when you take the valve cover off, the gasket doesn't fall off. It's really nice. You can see here where the valve cover bolt threads into the rocker shaft boss there, and it's actually, there's a flat spot here for a third one, but it's not threaded. So maybe if these leak, I could drill that out and thread a third hole for a valve cover bolt and just add a third one right here. I don't know if anybody's done that, but it seems like it's set up perfect. I don't know why they didn't add that from factory. Save 30 cents, I guess. The worst spots in my entire paint job just happened to be on the front of the valve covers. Like the rest of the paint on the whole engine looks fine, but right here in the front, the first thing you see when you look in the engine bay, that's where it looks bad, of course. Maybe I'll redo it later. Timing cover here, I'm just gonna trim this off so that it ends up being flush here with the block. Realized rear main seal I do need to do, and I was checking it out back here. So you actually have to pull the rear main crank bearing cap to do the rear main seal. So I probably could leave it. It doesn't look like it's really leaking. It's a little bit wet in there, but that might have been just from me cleaning and stuff. Probably don't want to do this once it's in the car. We're just gonna keep going here. I'm gonna pull the oil pump off, pull the rear main cap off, and let's try and do the rear main seal. The bearing looks okay, so that's nice. Let's see if this seal is gonna come out of here. It is not moving at all, so I'm gonna have to get creative here. Give me a sec. Okay, so another day out here. I think I did not realize that the upper seal in here is actually probably the original rope seal. That's why hitting it with the punch didn't do anything. But we have this tool now, removes and installs upper rear main seals without dropping the crankshaft. So this screws, you thread that, screw it into the seal and pull out one side. And then this thing is to install a new rope seal, which I'm not gonna do. We have rubber seals. And we have Novi here today. She's just chilling. She'll go sit in the sun for 5 minutes and get overheated, and then come in here and lay under the truck for 5 minutes, and she'll go back out there and get overheated again. This probably would have been easier if I hadn't smashed the seal down, but hopefully this still threads in. It does not want to grab there. Feels like we might be grabbing on this side. Yep, going in. Feel like I want to hit this side while I pull on this side, so let me get some help.
I don't think you can help tapping it, but
Oh, look at that. I'm surprised that came out, honestly. All right, well, this thing works. One-time use probably, but I think that's original rope seal there. All right, new rubber seal covered in assembly lube. I got the bearings cleaned and we got some assembly lube here. All right, so oil pin's all on. The gasket sealer in there. We got some brand new bolts all the way down. Old water pump out here has these steel fittings screwed in. I'm not even trying to take those out. Those are never gonna come out in one piece. So I got some other ones. So I found these on Granger and there's the part numbers. I think it was 20 bucks total for the two shipped and they shipped overnight, which is really fast for my location, so that's cool. All right, those are in. They look nice. So I brought the exhaust manifolds over to my neighbor, Scott, and he was just gonna help me try to fill the crack in. We didn't buy any special welding materials or anything. We just decided to try with the stainless TIG rod. It seemed to go in, but it wasn't really adhering to the cast metal, kind of just chasing cracks around. And then he went over it with the brazing rod. Hopefully it seals. It's not the best, like nothing really laid down. I'm sure that we should have bought something that was made for this, like cast iron rod or something like that. Probably would have worked out a lot better, but it is what it is. We just used what we had there and got something done. So here's what it looks like now. A little rough looking, but I'm gonna hit it with some paint. Honestly, I think it's gonna be fine. Even if it leaks a little bit, it's not gonna be a big deal. So also on the other one, I couldn't get the tap in straight, but he was able to get a tap and a helicoil in there. All right, I have the last of the engine pieces here that just need to be finished. I'm gonna black oxide all this stuff. Hopefully that works out. For the small stuff, throw it all in a cup here. Fill that till it's covered. And it's already black. Literally takes like 10 seconds. You can also brush it. And rinse them off. Just go straight to getting everything greased. Just super light grease coating. Because when you wipe the grease off, you'll wipe off all the excess, whatever it is that's on there. The less excess grease you leave on here, the easier it's gonna be when you go to wipe it off. All right, once it's all greased, you can just wipe it off. Microfiber works pretty good. You end up with a nice matte black there. And it's not perfect all the time. I mean, if I spent a little bit more time on prep, it would be better, but it's gonna match the rest of the car. All right, it's pretty much all ready to go. It's the finish that you end up with. Pretty decent. Got our engine mounts all done, harmonic balancer, exhaust manifold. I got all stainless hardware for the exhaust and the dipstick. The old one broke when I was removing it, so I got this new one. I shortened it so it matches the size of the old one. Painted the old dipstick, so we're using the old dipstick in the new tube, and I think I'll just leave it chrome. Stainless hardware with a little bit of anti-seize. Found a creative way to drain the transmission there, and hopefully I can scrub the bottom a little bit better this way too. rebuilt, it says 060120. I have no idea what any of that means, but it is rebuilt, RPM. You can tell this whole thing's been painted silver. A bit of metal there in the bottom. Some metal on the filter there, and the pan. I have no idea what any of it, the other stuff is. We cleaned everything up. There's a little metal, but we're just gonna run a new filter on. My favorite FIPG on the gasket. So hopefully that does what we want it to do. All right, everything's clean. Pan gasket, had to do it twice, but it's working now. Got new input shaft seal installed. The output shaft seal, I must have not ordered, so I need to order one of those. All right, so transmission's all cleaned up. Kick down mechanism and the dipstick all cleaned up. And then this is, I don't know, a neutral switch or something like that. A new bracket for it. All new seals, so the kick down seal is this little thing right there. Here's the part number. This transmission was a little bit weird because normally there's a shifter lever and then a kick down seal inside of it, but this is a cable shifted one, so it only has a kick down lever. And then there's the part number, Napa 13308. This is the output shaft. That's done too. Input shaft is done. Torque converter's back in. All right, so the engine bay is about as clean as it's gonna get here. This fender we polished a little bit, that one a little bit, and I did as much as I could on the firewall, and then painted the frame rails, cross member, and everything. All right, it is inside. Galaxy's inside too, and another addition. But the freaking power steering pump sprayed all over. I thought it was out of juice, but apparently not, all over the fresh paint. So that's very, very annoying. I guess I'll try to wipe it up and hope that it doesn't remove all the paint. I guess I'll be doing another paint job in here if not, so. All right, it's been a while since I've had the camera out here, but I've put the engine in and I would have had footage of that, but the GoPro did what GoPros do best and did not record. It's in there though. I painted up the frame rails. I can't remember what I recorded. I painted that little section of the fender because it was a little rusty looking. Now we just need to slap everything else back in there. Here's the pile of parts ready to go in. Got the rebuilt radiator from Service Center Radiator. And then all the time has just been spent blasting, cleaning, painting. So all the pulleys, mounts, fan, shroud, just all the ancillary items here. Cleaned up distributor, new battery tray because the other one was rusted out. Got new hoses, cleaned up transmission lines. So everything is ready to go over here. Rebuilt power steering pump. That's ready to go back together. And just brackets of every kind. But it's all clean and it should fly together now. So from what I've read, these cars came with either Group 24 or Group 27. And I think the Group 27, which is a bit wider than the 24, came on cars that had air conditioning. This car had air conditioning. Even if it didn't have air conditioning, I always like to go with the biggest battery I can. It'll fill out the battery tray completely. And this was actually cheaper than the Group 24 at Costco by like $10. This was like $120. All right, so one of the other things I picked up was this power steering hose, and it comes with a 90-degree bend in it. Stock power steering hose is just bulk 5/8 power steering hose that goes from the outlet on the steering box there up to the inlet on the reservoir. So it loops around, and unless you use a whole bunch of tube, eventually it's gonna kink. Obviously it's not good. The one that came off this car was kinked. It was still working, but it just looks bad to me. So I was Googling around for 5/8 power steering line, and I found this that already had the bend in it. I thought, hey, that was probably gonna make it a bit easier to make that loop with less bend in the line, and maybe it won't kink. So let's throw it on here. That fits in there quite well. Pretty happy with that. crazy lucky find. It just came up in the ads as I was searching for 5/8 power steering line. So if you have the same issue, there's your part number. So we got all the heater lines in here through this bracket and then into the water pump and into the manifold there. Our bypass and the lower radiator hose is in. The only one I left out was the upper radiator hose because I do want to do a bit more of a flush since the engine block wasn't completely cleaned out and the heater core wasn't cleaned out. So before we hook the radiator up and fill our brand new $700 radiator with junk, we're gonna flush the engine out. So I'll leave that one off for now. Wire holders that are mostly broken, they're kind of stupid, so I'm gonna fix that upgrade because I don't really want to buy new ones. So this is the setup we're going to go to. These are Adele clamps. This all comes from aviation. My dad is an aircraft mechanic, so this stuff's kind of laying around here. Countersunk screws, countersunk washers. I think the term is Tinnerman washer, and then some little washers and nylocks on the inside. So my dad's teaching me how to get the Adeles to be sized correctly.
Well, you just squeeze them until the holes match. Okay, and then spread them apart again. Squeeze it a little bit and it helps.
So it has this little fork tool. So if you don't have enough hands and the Adele is spreading, put the screw in the back.
Then just slide over the threads.
And just put it over the threads there. Holds the Adele in place so that you have enough hands to put the washer and nut on it. And then now all you need is just a wrench and a screwdriver.
You can drill a hole and cut a V with a pair of shears.
There you go.
That's all there is to it.
Adele's all done. There's enough room in here for me to get the battery cable in through up from the starter. I think it looks maybe better than factory. Certainly more durable than factory. And then on the inside, they're pretty flush with the fender, so nothing's gonna be sticking out hitting the tire. So I got this brand new battery hold down bracket at Vans Auto, and I've been able to find a lot of Mopar stuff that you can't get anywhere else there. They have a lot of mostly Mopar stuff, like the gas tank for the 65 Fury. They're like the only place that sells it. I got the battery tray also, the battery tray bracket, and now the hold down. Some trunk weather strip and stuff like that. They also have an eBay store. If you can find the item on their eBay store, then you can get it with free shipping. Whereas if you buy it from their website, you have to pay the shipping. So I don't know why not everything is on the eBay store, but that's how it goes. So this is the old positive battery cable, but I used to be into car stereo, so I have a bunch of wires and stuff left over. So I think I'm gonna replace that positive cable with this. This is 1/0, so that'll go from the starter to the battery. I have some ground cables that we can replace with. Those are pre-cut from a different car. So this crimper is not really meant for this. This is meant for crimping like steel cable, but I make it work. All right, I got all the cables made up. So I got positive 2 ground cables because I like extras. There was only one from the battery to the block, so I'm gonna add one from the battery to the frame also. And then this one is the stock one from the head to the firewall. Remade that one in some 4-gauge. And so we're all finished with the electrical here. We can start with this. That's new 4-gauge ground to the firewall, replacing the old factory. I don't know, it's probably like a 10-gauge. Way overkill, as with the rest of this. 1/0 copper all the way from the starter up to the battery. And then this is to the starter relay on the firewall. And then on the ground, factory had 1 cable to the head, and that's all I found. I didn't find anything else, and I feel like there should be something to the frame, so I added a second one down, another 1/0 cable all the way down, and it mounts under the battery box there on the frame. Double grounding there. I'm happy with that. I like overkill wiring. It's definitely way overkill, but looks nice. The power steering line, it was kind of touching the control arm there, so I added 1 Adele right there on the shock. That's probably temporary. Okay, so after a few runs to the hardware store, I have the right combination of bolts, spacers. Got 1/4-inch spacer down here, 1/2-inch spacer up there, giant spacer there for the adjustment. Well, when I took it off, this was bolted up to the air conditioning compressor somewhere. So I had to space it out here to make it work without the AC compressor on. Because the bracket was bent, we had to do the spacers, but now the pulleys line up pretty nicely. Also painted up the brake booster and the little steering shaft cover there. So I'm just rewrapping the harness in cloth like Tessa tape just to make it look better. It's gonna look better till I drive down the dirt road one time and then it'll be full of dirt. All right, we're getting very close here. I only have a couple things left. It's all full of fluids. The transmission, I was putting fluid in it, and then I think I got to like 7 quarts or so, and I heard a gurgle, and it started leaking out of the bell housing. I don't know why. Maybe there's a vent or something, and because it hasn't pumped the fluid throughout the transmission cooler lines and the torque converter, maybe it's over full, so that's why it's coming out there. I hope that's what it is, because I really don't want to pull any of this apart again. The cam needs to get broken in, so I can't run it very long, but I'm just going to dump some fuel down the carb and see if it's going to start with this timing. Well, it runs, I guess. So we got the car rolled up front to do the cam break-in, and I want to flush all the coolant out, so I got PVC coming from the upper coolant hose out and down. I'm trying to get it out. That way it doesn't go back into the radiator until we filter it around a couple times. I have to keep it at 2,500 RPM. Like a bunch of years ago, I bought this thing at a yard sale and never used it. The engine analyzer. It has a tack on it, so I can watch the RPM while we're doing the break-in. I've never used it. I don't know if anybody else has either. Looks pretty new to me. So everything's set up here. We got the water system bucket here. I have the upper radiator hose capped off, and then the normal radiator hose goes out PVC to the ground so that we're just continually flushing the engine out. And then the overflow tube here is up so that it doesn't just all pour out right there. And then we have our engine analyzer just running off the battery, and then it clips onto the negative there on the coil, and that's how it gets its RPM sense. Cam grinder told me 2,000 RPM for at least 20 minutes, so that's what we're gonna try to do. For the throttle hold, I got baling wire tied to a clamp. Pretty genius, huh? Yeah, okay. All right, we were 15 minutes and we had to shut it down. There's water stopping coming out of the thing, so I think it's not able to suck water down this funnel as fast as it needs it.
164 right back there, 155.
On the back of the head?
On the back of this head.
Which that's still cold. Upper radiator hose hooked in correctly, and the bucket there, I think it's cycled through enough, so it's gonna be fine. So we have 10 more minutes. Down at 800 there. So smelly. It seems like it did okay. It didn't overheat. It was popping a lot, like misfiring. Dad seems to think it's the points because they're the well, not original, but they're the ones that were in the car when I got it, and I didn't do anything to them. It's like the only thing I didn't do anything to.
some. Downshifted.
Oh, did it not?
I don't think it did. And that might help. There's leak.
There's first.
There you go.
Wow, it just floats, huh? You have an alternator gauge. That one's working. That's the only thing in here that works is the alternator.
And we're not sure about that.
Well, yeah, maybe not. If it's, I don't know. I can't remember if it was in the middle when it was off.
It's actually pretty smooth.
Yeah. Down the road like fairly smooth, and those wheels were so bent. You know that wheel's going like crazy, but we didn't even, I don't think we felt it.
Didn't feel it at all.
Yeah.
So you're okay with crazy wheels?
Yeah, I guess it's fine.
One. It's clean.
Looks normal. The leaks is what I'm worried about. Water on the ground is from when we were playing with it earlier, so I think the only leak we have now is power steering. I think the transmission, I just overfilled it earlier. We'll just keep an eye on that.
Something kind of cool. They used to have these things that would wrap around here and has a knob on it.
Oh yeah.
So like this, they call them mecha knobs.
I was thinking about wrapping this whole thing in bicycle handlebar tape. I have an appointment to get exhaust on it on Thursday. All right, so it runs and drives now. It's been a lot of work. 7 months since I bought the car. Lots of money. I don't know, a couple $1,000s, probably a few thousand that I put into it. I'm pretty happy that it's running and driving, and it's super fun just cruising it on the back roads here. I think we put maybe like 6 miles on it total, but the more miles we put on it, the more I trust it, and then that is what I enjoy, when I can trust the car. Like the first initial startups, like cool, like everything goes to plan, but then like getting it out on the road and getting it driving and being reliable, like it starts every time, that is what I enjoy. And then just knowing that it's all safe and you can go drive for a long time, that's pretty cool. So that's what makes me excited. So initially I wanted this to just be like get it run, get it driving on the road, and ended up being like basically an entire engine rebuild, which is kind of on par for the stuff I do. Like I don't like to do stuff twice, so I get into something and then I just end up doing everything all at once. So here we are with another basically fully rebuilt engine. Considering that there was only two problems, I think. First, the transmission that was leaking, which I don't know if I showed, but initially when I filled the transmission, I think I just overfilled it, and so it leaked out of the bell housing, and that was a little stressful, but I figured out that it was just overfilled, so now it has stopped. It just was overfilled, so it's good now. And then the second was the power steering leak, so that I still need to work on. And then I found a very small leak on the thermostat housing that is coming out of the bolt. I think I just need to reseal that bolt. So power steering leak, thermostat housing leak, I'll fix those two, and then this thing will be good to go. Also, it does need a tune up, so I'm going to take it over to my neighbor's, and he's been working on these for decades. I'm not an expert on carb tuning or anything like that, or timing and stuff, so he's going to help me get it all tuned up right. And then I've got a bunch of other stuff I want to do, like paint, bodywork, interior. We're going to do like carpet, seats. Like I got a new set of wheels and tires that I think are going to be awesome. And then I want to do a couple road trips with it. I have one planned in about a month and a half, and I'll try to record some stuff for that. So I feel like that was 7 months of work, and we still have 50% to go. Also, it needs a whole exhaust put on it, and I'm gonna have somebody do that. I was gonna do it myself, but it's gonna take me, 3 weeks to do that, like, because I haven't done it before, so I'm gonna have to teach myself. I have a welder, but I have to teach myself how to like do exhaust and do all the corners, or I'm gonna pay this guy and he's gonna do it in a day. So in this case, I have a road trip I want to go on, so we're just gonna go have somebody do it, and then I'll learn how to do exhaust later. But we also need to get a windshield put in it. There's a bunch of wiring issues. There's no taillights. The taillights don't work at all. None of the gauges work. So we got a lot of work still to do. And yeah, it feels like 90% done, 90% to go. That's how projects go sometimes, I guess. But there's a ton more work to do, and I'm going to film as much as I can. Yeah, thanks for watching this far. I know this is probably a long video, so thanks for watching this far. And hopefully you stick around.